I was going to start this episode the usual way, by saying, "Hey there, neighbor." But suddenly something struck me. I had no idea what game I was going to be talking about. What an idiot! But then, it occurred to me. Talking over my actions with a little echoey sound, I sounded like a film noir detective. From the future, who has a bunch of wild adventures, self-narrating the entire way. Now, which detective was that? Oh, that's right! The one from the Tex Murphy games. Now, if only I could remember his name. How on earth was I going to make an entertaining video about the Tex Murphy games? I could go into great detail about each of them, except I'm pretty sure I'm going to want to do individual save files videos on a couple of these later on. I guess I could do a quick summary. Maybe the best way would be to start with some history. I could probably talk about the first two games and how they were decent games in their day, but I never really played them until a year ago, so they're not really part of my memories, so to speak. Except, I'm not speaking. Screw it. I'll probably talk about how the first game was a landmark in PC gaming. Under a Killing Moon. It was one of the first FMV games, after all, and it came on what was then a mind-blowing 4 CDs. And unlike a metric ton of its FMV game contemporaries, it was good. Really good. It had a full 3D world to explore, where clues to the mystery could be found anywhere. It had a conversation system way ahead of its time, giving you the general idea of what Tex was going to say, but not ruining it for you. And the game also tackled some interesting issues, like prejudice, racism, and eugenics. But it might have been able to handle these issues more effectively if the game hadn't been so epically goofy.
10 seconds left. Down by 1. Murphy has the ball. He fakes. He drives. It's a 360! He's fouled!
And Chris Jones, who plays Tex Murphy, bless him, is only an amateur at best with his acting and directing here. He seems to fluctuate between playing it straight and being a parody of himself. But don't worry, folks, he gets much better as an actor as the games go on. And some of the Hollywood talent was misused, and some of them simply seemed out of place. Like, I respect the man, but what the hell was wrong with Brian Keith?
What's your problem? You one of those people who can't live with success? Huh?
Huh? Seriously, what the shivering tits was that? Did he just have an allergic reaction to acting? All the Tex Murphy games take place in a future where World War III happened, and radiation is everywhere. Some people are immune to it, like Tex, though others became mutants. And Access Software had some pretty weird ideas about mutations throughout the Tex Murphy games. Louis looks almost like Frankenstein's monster. One guy wound up with an elephant's trunk for a nose. And one poor soul wound up with face herpes. The game was still awesome, though ironically, even though it was the first Tex Murphy FMV game, it was the last one I would get to play. And this is where I'd get to talk about how my first introduction to Tex Murphy came at the perfect time, with the best game in the series, the Pandora Directive. The Pandora Directive kept everything that was awesome from the first game. The deep mystery, the exploration, the humor, and the brilliant conversation system, and fixed everything that didn't work in Under a Killing Moon, and even added things. The tone was changed from mindlessly silly to serio-comic, and as a result, the game is that much more engrossing. They brought in a professional director, and as a result, the cinematics are more interesting to watch. And the performances. Chris Jones is much better here, though not perfect. Putting him opposite actors like Barry Corbin, Tanya Roberts, and the inestimable Kevin McCarthy certainly didn't hurt. And there were 3 branching character paths you could take throughout the game that led to 7 different endings. Well, 6. 8? You know, the internet isn't too clear on this, and I don't have time to play through the entire game to find them all myself, so maybe I'll just skip this part when I do the video. Seriously, the choices you made, both in conversation and in the normal course of the game, would change the way Tex behaved, and the way the plot played out. This was in 1996, years before every game started doing it. I could go on, but I'm definitely going to save this game for its own save files video. So I'd probably move on from there to Overseer. But how? Suddenly, an idea came to me. Aha! Being a fat guy, gravity is my natural enemy, so falling down is nothing new to me. Unfortunately, I'd just fallen on my keys. Access Software entered into a deal with Intel, who wanted a Tex Murphy game to bundle with some new hardware product. Unfortunately, this only gave the Tex Murphy crew 6 months to complete the game. As such, some corners were cut, and Tex Murphy Overseer wasn't as good as the Pandora Directive. But it still had some solid writing, directing, and mystery and puzzle-solving gameplay. Chris Jones does his finest acting work yet, holding his own with professional actors, including some wonderful scenes with the brilliant Michael York that I will not spoil for you. And I'm going to have to talk about how, sadly, that was the last Tex game released, over 12 years ago. Even worse, the game ended on a cliffhanger. The Tex crew lightened that up a bit by releasing audio files called Tex Murphy Radio Theater, continuing the story somewhat, and leaving it on a cliffhanger that was slightly less cliffy? There is hope for the future, of course, since Aaron Connors and Chris Jones have reunited under a new company called Big Finish Games and bought the rights to the Tex Murphy franchise. In the meanwhile, I should probably tell everybody that you can support Tex and buy all the Tex Murphy games on goodoldgames.com, and they'll work just fine with modern systems. Or you can buy the games they've released on bigfinishgames.com. They're good games too. They're just not Tex. And it's at this point that I want to talk about what I remember most about the Tex Murphy games. The character of Tex Murphy himself. Tex is probably what they had in mind when they coined the term lovable loser. Tex isn't perfect. Far from it. He drinks, he smokes, he can be selfish at times.
It just could be too dangerous.
But I like danger. I like acrobatic danger right here on...
Insensitive.
Naturally, it was love at first sight.
Interesting. Had you and Carl been drinking heavily that night?
And occasionally stupid.
You know, just between us, I believe Sylvia may have driven Carl to his death.
You mean like, dropped him off at the bridge?
Well, not literally.
When something good happens to him, he usually finds a way to screw it up.
$4,000. I owe Louis $200, and Rook says I owe him $300. But there should be plenty left over. Yes, sir. Things are definitely looking up.
But when his back's against the wall, Tex always finds a way to win. In the end, especially when it really matters, Tex will do the right thing. And Tex knows he won't always get rewarded for that. He usually doesn't, but he does it anyway. As Chris Jones himself put it, he's not Superman. He's just a regular guy, trying to do what's right and still have enough money for rent and food. I would have to finish by admitting that I love the character of Tex Murphy so much that I've written fan fiction. Normally the thought of writing or even reading fan fiction would make me want to pull out one of my own eyes and shove it up my ass so I could finally find my watch. But I was desperate to keep the story going. I'd played all the games, and I'd listened to all the Tex Murphy Radio Theater episodes, and it wasn't enough. That is the sign of a truly compelling story. And it's a testament to the skills of Aaron Connors and Chris Jones and the entire Tex Murphy team that the fans still want more, 12 years later. And then I'll wrap up with the usual, saying I've got more memories to make. Alright, I think I've got enough to get started. Let's do it. Stevie, I'm about to do the save files video. Do you mind?
Things could get worser.
What does that even mean? Worser? What are you, 4?